I looked at myself in the antique dresser mirror, adjusting the pearl earrings Ricardo had given me for our 10th wedding anniversary. 20 years had passed since he'd been gone, but I still wore those earrings on special occasions, and tonight was definitely a special occasion. I had made a decision that I had been thinking about for months, and I was finally ready to announce it to my daughters. Rosario was in the kitchen for the 3rd hour preparing dinner. This woman had worked for us under Ricardo and knew the family's tastes down to the last detail. The smell of roast chicken and herbs wafted throughout the house, mingling with the scent of the fresh lilies I'd ordered to be placed in the dining room. I wanted everything to be perfect. At 7:30 in the evening, the doorbell rang. The first to arrive was Catalina, punctual as always. My youngest daughter was never late, unlike her sister. She kissed me on the cheek and held out a small bouquet of yellow roses. "Mom, how are you doing? You look beautiful," she said, taking off her light cardigan. Catalina always dressed modestly but tastefully. Today she wore a simple navy blue dress and low-heeled shoes. No frills, no desire to impress. She'd been like that since she was a child, quiet, thoughtful, reliable. "Thank you, darling. Come into the living room. Your sister will be here soon." Catalina nodded and went into the living room, where she sat down in her favorite chair by the window. She picked up a book from the coffee table and immersed herself in reading, glancing at her watch from time to time. We both knew that Palomia would be late, as usual. Indeed, the eldest daughter didn't show up until half an hour later, flying into the house like a hurricane. Rosario opened the door for her, and I heard Palomia's loud voice from down the hall. "Mom, I'm sorry I'm late. Traffic was terrible." She burst into the living room, jingling her bracelets and wearing a strong scent of expensive perfume. She was wearing a bright red dress with a deep neckline and high-heeled shoes. Her lips were painted to match the dress, and her hair was styled in an elaborate hairstyle. Palomia always liked to be the center of attention. She leaned in to kiss me, and I smelled alcohol. Apparently, she had stopped somewhere on her way to have a drink with her friends. "How are things going at work?" I asked, though I could tell by her appearance that the workday was over pretty early for her. "Oh, don't talk to me about work on such a beautiful evening," Palomia said, plopping down on the couch next to her sister. "Catalina, you look so modest as always." Modest. There was a slight sneer in her voice, but Catalina didn't react, just smiled and closed her book. "Girls, let's go to the dining room. Rosario has prepared your favorite dishes," I said, getting up from my chair. The dining room looked festive. Rosario covered the table with a white tablecloth with lace edges, arranged the best china and silverware. In the center of the table was a vase of lilies, and on the sides were tall candles in silver candlesticks. It was just the way I like it, elegant, but not too pompous. "How beautiful!" Palomia exclaimed, sitting down in her seat. "Mother, you're obviously up to something. You don't just throw a dinner party like this." Catalina sat across from her sister and looked at me questioningly. Rosario brought the dishes and set them on the table, then quietly went away, as always sensing the mood in the house. I poured the girls some wine, a good red from Ricardo's cellar, and raised my glass. "I'd like to propose a toast," I began, feeling my heart start to beat faster. "To my family, to my beloved daughters." We clinked glasses, and I took a sip of wine, gathering my thoughts. "It's time. Girls, I invited you here tonight for a reason. I want to talk to you about something important." I paused, looking at their faces. Palomia was looking at me with curiosity, Catalina with slight concern. "You know that after my father's death, we have considerable savings. His firm is doing well, and the profits are coming in steadily. So I've decided, I'd like to give you a gift." "A gift?" Palomia interjected, setting aside her fork. "What kind of gift, Mom?" "I want to transfer $450,000 into each of your personal accounts." Silence hung in the air. Catalina slowly placed her glass on the table, and Palomia opened her mouth in surprise. $450,000? The eldest daughter finally spoke up. "Dollars? Mom, are you serious?" "I'm dead serious. Tomorrow morning I'll go to the bank and make the transfers." Palomia jumped up from her chair and rushed over to me. "Mom, it's unbelievable. I don't believe it." She hugged me so tightly that I could hardly breathe. $450,000. Oh my God, I couldn't even imagine. Catalina sat in silence, obviously trying to process what she had heard. Mom, that's very generous of you, she said quietly. But why? I mean, why such a large sum? Because I want you to be happy, I answered, looking at my youngest daughter. Because you are my girls, and I want to help you have the life you dream of. Palomia returned to her seat, but she couldn't sit still. She fidgeted in her chair, waved her arms, spoke quickly and excitedly. Mother, you have no idea what this means to me. Do you know how long I've dreamed of a new car? And now I can buy a real beauty, a BMW or even a Mercedes, and I want to go to Europe, to France and Italy. Can you imagine? I'll walk around the Louvre, eat real croissants in Paris. She talked without stopping, listing everything she was going to buy and where she was going to go. New clothes, expensive jewelry, beauty treatments she'd been wanting to get for a long time. Her eyes were burning, her cheeks flushed with excitement. And you know what, Mom? I'm finally going to be able to quit this damn job. Palomia continued. Sitting all day long over these boring reports, putting up with the boss's nagging. No, that's enough. Now I will live the life I want. Catalina was silent all this time, only nodding occasionally in response to her sister's remarks. Finally, I turned to her. What do you think, my dear? The youngest daughter looked up at me and smiled. I think it's a wonderful gift, Mom. Thank you so much. But I don't know what I'm going to do with the money yet. I guess I'll save most of it for the future. For the future? Palomia was surprised. Catalina, you have $450,000 in your hands, and you're thinking of putting it away? Live now, enjoy life. I'm already enjoying life, Catalina replied calmly. I like my work, I like my students. And the money can come in handy later. Maybe I'll buy a small house or invest in education. A house? Palomia snorted. With that money, you could buy a real mansion, not a house, or at least an apartment in the center of Lima. I listened to my daughter's conversation and felt a growing unease. The reactions were so different, so revealing. Catalina remained as calm and rational as ever. And Palomia seemed to lose her head at the mere thought of that kind of money. Mom, when exactly will you transfer the money? Asked the eldest daughter. Tomorrow morning? What time do banks open? 8 o'clock? Maybe I should come with you too. Palomia, take your time, I said gently. Everything will be done in due time. But I can't take my time, she exclaimed. Mother, you have no idea how long I have dreamed of this opportunity. Do you remember I told you about that car I saw in the parlor? Red, with white interior? Now it will be mine. Dinner continued, but my appetite was gone. I watched my daughters and wondered if I was doing the right thing. Rosario brought dessert, a fruitcake that Palomia had adored since childhood, but the eldest daughter only tasted a piece, too excited to focus on the food. You know what, Mom? She said, pushing her plate away. I'm thinking of throwing a big party. Call all my friends, rent a restaurant. Or no, a yacht. Imagine, a party on a yacht. Palomia, maybe we should think about it first, Catalina suggested cautiously. That kind of money, it's a serious responsibility. Responsibility? Laughed the older sister. Catalina, money is there to be spent, especially when there's so much of it. I got up from the table and went to the window. The lanterns were coming on in the garden, and their soft light was shining on the beds of roses I had planted with Ricardo years ago. We had dreamed of our daughters growing up, becoming independent, starting their own families. Ricardo always said that the main thing is to bring up the right values in children, to teach them to appreciate not only money, but also labor, family, honesty. Mom, are you upset about something? Catalina's voice brought me back to reality. No, dear. Everything is fine. I turned to my daughters. I'm just thinking about your father. He'd be happy to see you all grown up. Dad would definitely approve of your decision, Palomia said, standing up and walking over to me. He always wanted us to have nothing. Yes, I agreed. He wanted you to be happy. The evening was coming to an end. Catalina was the first to leave. She had to work early tomorrow. She thanked me again for the gift and promised to think carefully about how best to use the money. Mom, it's really a very generous gift, she said, hugging me goodbye. I will try not to disappoint you. Palomia stayed longer, continuing to make plans for the future. She talked about traveling, shopping, entertainment. There was such enthusiasm in her voice that I almost believed that maybe this gift would really make her happy. "Good night, Mom," she said at last, kissing me on the cheek. "And thank you for everything. You are the best mother in the world." When the daughters left, I was alone in the big house. Rosario was clearing the table, quietly humming some old song. I went back into the living room and sat in Ricardo's chair, looking at my husband's portrait on the mantel. "Am I doing the right thing?" I quietly asked his image. Of course, there was no answer, but in my heart I knew that my decision might be wrong. My girls had reacted too differently to the news, and too many plans Palomia had made in one evening. I woke up the next morning with a heavy feeling in my chest. Sleep was restless, full of vague images and disturbing dreams. All night I dreamed of Palomia buying one car after another, and then they all turn into a pile of scrap metal. Silly dreams, but the anxiety didn't go away after waking up. I drank coffee on the terrace, watching Jorge the gardener water the roses. The man had worked for us for 15 years and knew every plant in the garden better than I did. The measured movements with which he tended the flowers calmed me a little. I wished everything in life could be as simple and straightforward. After breakfast, I drove to the bank as I had promised my daughters. Alberto Moreno, the branch manager, greeted me with his usual courtesy. He had known our family for many years and had always treated us with special respect. "Señora Ventera, what a pleasant meeting," he said as he ushered me into his office. "What can I do for you?" I explained to him my desire to transfer the money to my daughters. Alberto listened attentively, making notes in his notebook, but I saw him frown when I told him the amount. 450,000 each? He asked me again. "Señora Ventera, that is indeed a considerable sum. Perhaps we should consider a partial payment, or set some conditions?" "No," I answered firmly. "I want the money to be transferred in full and without any restrictions." Alberto shrugged and began to draw up the paperwork. An hour later, everything was ready. I signed the necessary papers and the money went into Palomia's and Catalina's accounts. There was no turning back. As I left the bank, I felt the need to talk to someone who knew my family and could give honest advice. Solange was just such a person. We had been friends for over 20 years, and she was never shy about telling me the truth, even if that truth was unpleasant. Solange's pharmacy was in the old part of town, in a small building with a faded sign. Inside it always smelled of medicinal herbs and antiseptic. Solange stood behind the counter, counseling an elderly woman about blood pressure medicine. When she saw me, she smiled and raised her hand, indicating that she would be free in a minute. "Amalia!" she exclaimed as soon as the client left. "What a surprise! What brings you to my humble abode?" Solange had always been inclined to theatricality. When she was young, she dreamed of becoming an actress, but life took a different course. After her husband died, she inherited the pharmacy and turned it into a thriving business. Despite her 56 years, she looked younger thanks to regular yoga and a strict diet. "We need to talk," I said, walking behind the counter. "Do you have time?" "There's always time for you. Come in the back. I'll put the kettle on." We settled in the small room behind the pharmacy, where Solange kept a stock of medicines and received close friends. There were 2 old armchairs, a coffee table, and a small cupboard with tea things. On the walls hung pictures of her late husband and children, who were long grown and living in other cities. "So, what happened?" Solange asked, pouring tea into cups. "I can see from your face that it's serious." I told her about last night's dinner and my decision to give my daughters the money. Solange listened silently, only occasionally raising her eyebrows or shaking her head. When I finished, she set the cup on the table and looked at me with an expression I knew well. It was the way she looked when one of her children did something stupid. "Amalia, you're crazy," she said bluntly. $450,000? Each? With no strings attached? I wanted to make it nice for them. "Nice?" Solange laughed, but it was a bitter laugh. "Amalia, you've known Palomia since she was a child. Remember how she spent all the money you gave her for summer camp on a new dress when she was 16? Or how she wrecked your car the week after she got her license?" I remembered. "Of course you did. Polomia was always impulsive, always wanting everything at once, but I was hoping she'd changed as she got older. She's a grown woman, Solange. She's 32 years old. A grown woman? Snorted her friend. Amelia, face it. Polomia has never worked more than a year in one place. She's been living from paycheck to paycheck, spending money on stupid things and constantly asking you for help. And now you're giving her almost $500,000? What do you think is going to happen? I knew Solange was right, but I didn't want to admit it. In the back of my mind, I hoped that the large sum of money would make Polomia become more responsible. Maybe she would invest it in some business, or at least put some of it aside for the future. What about Catalina? Solange asked, as if reading my mind. How did she react? Catalina was reserved. She said she would put the money aside for the future. You see? Exclaimed her friend. One daughter behaves sensibly, while the other daughter is already planning to spend money left and right. Is that fair? But I gave them equally. Amalia, it's not fair to give them all the same. It's about giving everyone what they deserve and can use properly. We sat in the pharmacy for over an hour. Solange kept convincing me that I had made a mistake, and I tried to defend my decision. But with each passing minute, my arguments sounded weaker and weaker, and my friend's arguments sounded more and more convincing. Listen to my advice, Solange said finally. Watch your daughters for the next few days. See how they behave when they get that kind of money. And if you see that I'm right, well, then consider if there's anything you can do about it. I returned home in a depressed mood. Rosario met me in the hall and told me that Polomia had called. What did she want? I asked her as I took off my shoes. She wanted to know when the money would be in the account. She said she'd already picked out a car and wanted to go to the dealership tomorrow morning. My heart sank. Not even 24 hours later, Polomia was already going to spend the money. Maybe Solange really was right. The next few days passed relatively quietly. Catalina called once to thank her for the gift and to tell her that she planned to invest some of the money in educational courses for teachers. I hadn't heard from Polomia, which worried me more than if she had called every day. Thursday morning, the phone rang at 8:30. It was Catalina, and I could tell from her voice that something serious had happened. Mother, I have something to tell you, she began without preamble. About Polomia. What happened? I asked, already sensing trouble. She quit her job. Yesterday. She scandalized her boss, said a bunch of mean things to him, and slammed the door. I sank into the chair, feeling my legs go weak. How did you know? Marta, her coworker, called. She said Polomia came to work in an expensive new dress, with a fresh manicure and a new haircut. And when the boss reprimanded her for being late, she said she didn't need the job now because she had money. Then she added that he could shove his pennies you-know-where and walked away. I listened to my daughter's story and felt a cold rage growing inside me. It hadn't been 3 days, and Polomia had already done something stupid. Mom, are you there? Catalina asked. Yes, I'm here. Thank you for telling me. Mom, maybe we should talk to her. She's acting really weird. Martha said that Polomia was bragging about how she could afford anything now. After talking to Catalina, I sat in the living room looking out the window for a long time. Solange's words echoed in my head like a broken record. She'd warned me, and I hadn't listened. Now Polomia was out of work, and clearly planned to live on the gift money. In the evening, Polomia herself called. Her voice was cheerful and carefree. Mom, hi, how are you? Polomia, I heard you quit your job. Oh, that's, She hesitated for a second. Yeah, I can't work there anymore. Do you know what the wages are? A pittance. And now that I have money, I can afford to look for something better. Or not work at all. Well, why not? I'll work. Only now I have time to find a really good place. I didn't argue. It was clear that Polomia had already made up her mind. There was only one way to see how serious her changes were. Polomia, I wanted to invite you and Catalina to my birthday party, I said. A week from today, Saturday night. Oh, of course, we'll definitely come. Can I bring Edmundo? Sure, bring your husband. Great. You know what, Mom? I'm going to buy you a terrific gift. Now I can afford it. After talking to Polomia, I called Catalina and invited her to her birthday party too. The youngest daughter, as always, was excited to spend time with the family. "Mom, do you want me to help with the organization?" she offered. "I can come early to help Rosario with the preparations." "Thank you, dear, but Rosario can handle it. Just come and be yourself." The week dragged on slowly. I tried to do the usual things: reading, working in the garden, going out with friends. But my thoughts kept coming back to Palomia and what would happen at the birthday party. Solange came to see me on Friday. She brought medication for my chronic headache and, as always, was not shy about giving her opinion. "How are things going with your daughters?" she asked, settling in the living room with a cup of coffee. I told her about Palomia's dismissal. Solange only shook her head. "I told you. Do you know how long it will be before she spends all the money? I bet it's less than a year." "I don't know," I replied tiredly. "They're coming to my birthday party tomorrow. I'll see how Palomia behaves. And what will you do if she's completely lost her head over the money?" "I don't know," I said again. "Honestly, I don't know." Solange looked at me sympathetically. "Amalia, sometimes our love for our children makes us do things that hurt them. You mean well, but the result may not be what you expected." Saturday came faster than I thought. I got up in the morning with a heavy sense of foreboding. It was going to be a difficult day, and I was preparing for it as a serious test. I was going to see what my oldest daughter had turned my generous gift into. My 58th birthday was sunny and warm. I woke up early, as usual, and the first thing I did was walk to the bedroom window to look out at the garden. The roses that Ricardo and I had planted in the early years of our marriage were in full bloom. Their fragrance wafted into the house through the open windows, creating a festive atmosphere. Rosario was already cooking in the kitchen. She had gotten up before dawn to prepare all the family's favorite dishes. The smell of roast chicken with rosemary and garlic reminded me of the old birthdays, when Ricardo was alive and the girls were still little, coming to me with homemade cards and ineptly plucked flowers. "Señora Amalia, happy birthday!" exclaimed Rosario when I came down to breakfast. She placed a cup of coffee and a plate of breakfast in front of me. "I wish you good health and long life." "Thank you, dear," I replied, smiling. Rosario had been a part of our family for so many years that her congratulations meant as much to me as those of my daughters. The day stretched on slowly. I tried to read, but my thoughts kept returning to the evening ahead. Catalina called me in the morning to congratulate me and to confirm my arrival time. Her voice was warm and cheerful, as always. "Mom, I'm so glad we'll be spending your birthday together," she said. "I have a present for you, and I hope you like it." "Honey, the greatest gift of all is that you'll come." There was no call from Palomia until after lunch. When she finally called, there was excitement in her voice. "Mom, happy birthday. Edmundo and I are getting ready. We'll be at your place soon. By the way, I bought you an amazing present. You won't expect it." At 7:30 in the evening, Catalina was the first to arrive. She was dressed in a simple but elegant dress of dark green color and was carrying a small box wrapped in beautiful paper. "Mom, you look beautiful," she said, hugging me. "This dress looks great on you." I wore my favorite dark blue dress that Ricardo had bought me for my wedding anniversary. It came with a pearl necklace and earrings, a family heirloom from my mother-in-law. We walked to the living room, where Rosario had already set out the hors d'oeuvres and drinks. Catalina sat down in her favorite chair and handed me the gift. "Open it," she said with a smile. Inside the box was a small, leather-bound photo album. On the first page was written in beautiful handwriting, "To our beloved mom, memories of happy moments." I opened the album and saw photos of our family collected over the years. There were pictures from the girls' birthdays, family trips, and holidays. Many of the photos were new to me. Catalina must have collected them from relatives and friends. "Catalina, it's beautiful," I said, tears welling up in my eyes. "Thank you, darling." "I wanted you to have a scrapbook of your dearest memories," my daughter explained. "You know, when I was collecting these pictures, I realized how many happy moments we had." We flipped through the album, remembering different events. Catalina told stories associated with each photo, and I marveled at how well she remembered the details of those long-ago days. At 7 p.m., I heard the sound of a car in the driveway. I looked out the window and saw a brand-new red car, clearly an expensive model. Palomia was behind the wheel with Edmundo next to her. It looked like Palomia had already spent some of her money, Catalina said quietly. Palomia entered the house like an actress on stage. She wore a bright pink dress that was clearly designer, new gold jewelry, and shoes that, judging by the soles, cost a fortune. Her hair was done in an elaborate style, and her makeup looked like it had been done by a professional makeup artist. "Mom, happy birthday!" she exclaimed, running up to me with her arms spread wide so she wouldn't wrinkle her hair in the hug. She was wearing a strong scent of expensive perfume. Edmundo followed her. Palomia's husband had also clearly updated his wardrobe, a new suit, new shoes, an expensive watch on his wrist. Usually modest and quiet, today he looked smug and carried himself with an unusual swagger. "Señora Amalia, happy birthday," he said, bringing his lips to my hand. The gesture surprised me, before Edmundo had just shaken my hand. "And now a present," Palomia announced, pulling out an elegant box from her expensive purse. "Mom, this is the best perfume in the world. French, exclusive." I opened the box and saw an exquisitely shaped bottle of perfume. Even without knowing perfume, I knew it was very expensive. "Thank you, dear," I said. "That's very generous." "Only the best for the best, Mom," Palomia exclaimed. "By the way, have you seen my new car? It's beautiful, isn't it? I bought it yesterday." "Beautiful car," I agreed, although deep down I was worried about how much money my eldest daughter had already spent. We went to the dining room, where Rosario had prepared a festive dinner. The table was set according to all the rules: the best porcelain, silverware, tall candles, and candlesticks. In the center stood a vase with white lilies, and next to it a bottle of good wine, which Ricardo had set aside for special occasions. For the first half hour, the dinner was relatively quiet. Catalina talked about her work at the school. I shared my plans for the garden. Palomia talked about her purchases, not hiding her pride at how much money she'd spent. Edmundo chimed in and occasionally made comments about how they could afford to live like human beings now. "You know, Mom," Palomia said, sipping her wine, "I realize that I've been living wrong all my life, saving money on everything, buying cheap clothes, taking buses. And why? Life is one, you have to enjoy it." "But you still have to work," Catalina said cautiously. "Work?" Palomia laughed. "Catalina, you still don't understand. I have money now. Real money. I can go for years without working." "Palomia, 450,000 isn't that much to not work all your life," I said. "Mom, you just don't know how you can live frugally with that amount of money," replied my eldest daughter. "By the way, Edmundo, why don't we go out on the balcony? Let's get some air?" Edmundo nodded, and they got up from the table. I saw them go to the balcony and close the door behind them. Through the glass door, I could see Edmundo pulling something out of his pocket and Palomia leaning into his arms. Mom, they're smoking marijuana," Catalina said quietly. "What?" I couldn't believe my ears. "Marijuana. See how they're passing something small to each other? And how Palomia is holding her breath." I looked closely, and I did see a distinctive movement. Palomia and Edmundo were taking turns puffing on something that was clearly not an ordinary cigarette. "At my birthday party," I muttered. "At my house." Catalina put a hand on my shoulder. "Mom, maybe we should say something to them." But before I could answer, Palomia and Edmundo were back in the dining room. Their eyes were red and their demeanor had changed noticeably. Palomia sat down at the table and laughed loudly for no reason. "Great air you have on your balcony, Mother," she said, and Edmundo giggled in response. "Shall we get on with the dinner?" I suggested, trying to keep the festive atmosphere. Of course, Palomia exclaimed. "By the way, Mom, can you bring more wine? And where do you have the salt? Oh, and napkins. These napkins aren't right." The way she said it made me tense up. She addressed me as if I were a waitress in a restaurant. "Palomia, the salt is right in front of you," said Catalina. "Ah, yes," Palomia laughed again. "Mom, can you still bring the wine? And put on some music. It's quiet in here." I got up and went to get the wine, feeling increasingly irritated. When I returned, Palomia was already in charge of Rosario, who had brought dessert. "Rosario, this cake is a little dry. Do you have something better? And make the coffee stronger. I don't like weak coffee." Rosario looked at me with embarrassment. She was making this cake from a recipe that Palomia always liked. Palomia, don't be so rude, Catalina said. Ruda? The older sister was surprised. I'm just giving my opinion. You know, Catalina, when you have money, you can afford to demand quality. Edmundo nodded, agreeing with his wife. Palomia is right, he said. Why eat bad food when you can afford good food? But the food is fine, I objected. Rosario has been cooking it since morning. Mom, you're just used to plain food, Palomia said condescendingly. Now we know what real quality is. By the way, can you get me some more water? And a lemon for the water, sliced into thin slices. I felt the blood rush to my face. Palomia spoke to me as if I were her servant, and the worst part was that she didn't even realize how humiliating her words sounded. Palomia, I'm your mother, not a waitress, I said as calmly as I could. Mom, don't exaggerate, laughed her daughter. I just asked for water. What's the big deal? It's not the water, it's the way you ask for it. And how do I ask? Palomia looked at me with a look of surprise that was clearly fake. I'm asking quite normally. Edmundo chuckled. Señora Amalia, you take everything too seriously. Palomia didn't mean to offend you. Of course she didn't, Palomia said. Mom, you're getting a little jumpy. Maybe you should relax too. She glanced meaningfully at the balcony, and Edmundo giggled again. Enough, I said firmly. Palomia, you're being indecent. Indecent? The daughter's voice rose. What's indecent about me asking for water? What's indecent is that you treat me like a servant, and that you were rude to Rosario, and that you smoked drugs on my balcony. Drugs? Palomia theatrically shook her hands. Mom, it's just weed. Everybody smokes it. Not in my house. What's the big deal? It's my birthday. I mean your birthday. It's a celebration. We have to have fun. Catalina tried to intervene. Palomia, calm down. You're really acting strange. Strange? The older sister turned to the younger one. Catalina, you're just jealous. Jealous that I can enjoy life and you can't. I'm not jealous of anyone, Catalina replied calmly. It's just that you've changed since you got the money. Of course I have, exclaimed Palomia. I stopped counting every penny. I stopped wearing cheap clothes and eating in diners. I live like a human being. And before you lived like a what? I asked. Like a beggar, Palomia blurted out. Mom, you were always so stingy. Remember when I asked you to buy me a beautiful dress for the prom? And you said it was too expensive. Or when I wanted to go on a class trip and you said it wasn't necessary. All your life you've been saving money on us. Palomia, Catalina exclaimed. How can you say that? Why, it's true. Palomia stood up from the table, swaying. Mom always spared money for us. And now that I have my own money, I can buy what I want. I never spared money on you, I said, feeling my voice shake. I bought you everything you needed. I bought your prom dress, too. Necessities, Palomia snorted. The cheapest one I could find. And look at you. You wear thousands of dollars worth of jewelry. You live in a mansion and you bought our clothes in cheap stores. I got that jewelry from your grandmother, and I built the house with your father before you were born. So, you could have sold that jewelry and bought us something nice, but no, you preferred to save them up. Edmundo nodded approvingly, supporting his wife. Palomia is right, he said. When you have money, you should use it. What's the use of hoarding wealth if the children wear cheap clothes? Shut up, I shouted at my son-in-law. It's none of your business. Yes, it is, replied Edmundo. Palomia is my wife, and I will not let anyone hurt her. No one is hurting her, Catalina exclaimed. She's the one hurting Mama. I'm hurting her? Palomia laughed hysterically. I'm just telling the truth. Mom, you've been stingy all your life, and you know what? Now I don't care. Now I have money, and I'm going to live the life I want. With my money. I couldn't stand it. It's my money that I gave you. So what of it? Palomia came right up to me. You gave it to me. So now it's mine. I can spend it however I want. That's not the point. The point is that you've become ungrateful and rude. Ungrateful? Palomia's voice became shrill. Why should I be grateful? That you gave us scraps while you lived in luxury. Palomia, stop this at once, Catalina shouted, also getting up from the table. Don't tell me what to do, snapped at her older sister. You've always been Mother's favorite. Quiet, submissive, grateful for any crumbs. Enough! I couldn't take it anymore. Palomia, you're drunk and drugged. Stop it now! Or what? My daughter folded her arms across her chest. What will you do to me? Disinherit me? Too late, I already have the money. Palomia, get out of my house, I said quietly but firmly. I'd love to, she exclaimed. Edmundo, let's get out of here. There is nothing to breathe in this atmosphere of poverty and avarice. She grabbed her purse and headed for the exit. Edmundo hurried after her, saying, I'm sorry about this, but Palomia was right. Money should be spent, not saved. A moment later, the front door slammed so hard that the glass in the windows shook. I heard the car start, and Palomia's red car sped off into the night with a screech of tires. There was a heavy silence in the dining room. Catalina came to me and hugged me. Mom, I'm sorry about her. She's not herself. Yes, I said quietly. I'm afraid the money has finally turned her head. Rosario appeared in the dining room doorway with a concerned look. Señora Amalia, would you mind clearing the table? Yes, dear, clear it. The feast was over. Catalina and I sat in the living room for another hour, barely speaking. My youngest daughter tried to comfort me, but Palomia's words stuck in my head like a thorn in my side. Was I really a stingy mother? Did I really skimp on my children? When Catalina left, I was alone in the big house. The birthday party was ruined, and I realized that the decision to give my daughters money had turned out to be a disaster. At least for one of them. I woke up the next morning with a heavy head and a sore heart. All night long I dreamed of bits and pieces of last night's scandal. Palomia's face contorted with anger, her voice full of accusation, the sound of the door slamming. The sunlight was streaming through the curtains, but the atmosphere in the house was oppressive, as if last night's quarrel had left poisonous fumes in the air. Rosario had brought me breakfast in bed, something she never did without being asked. Apparently, my faithful housekeeper understood the state I was in after yesterday's events. Señora Amalia, how are you feeling? She asked, placing the tray on the bedside table. Not well, Rosario. Very bad. Don't be upset with Mrs. Palomia. She wasn't herself. She'll probably regret what she said. I nodded, but deep down I knew Rosario was wrong. Palomia was saying what she thought. The money had only revealed what had long lurked in her soul, her resentment, her grievances, her feeling that she had been denied something in her life. After breakfast, I sat in the living room for a long time, leafing through the photo album Catalina had given me. The pictures had captured the happy moments of our family life, but now they seemed to me a mockery. Was Palomia's displeasure behind all those smiles? Did she really think I was a stingy mother? By noon, I realized I could no longer be alone with my thoughts. I needed to talk to someone who knew our family and could offer sober advice. The only such person was Solange. I got dressed and drove to her pharmacy. Sunday was usually a quiet day. There were few customers and Solange had time to talk. When I entered the pharmacy, she immediately realized from my face that something serious had happened. Amalia, she exclaimed, coming out from behind the counter. What's wrong? You look terrible. We need to talk, I said tiredly. Solange flipped the sign on the door, indicating that the pharmacy was closed for lunch, and led me into the back room. She put on the kettle and sat across from me, scrutinizing my face. Tell me about it, she said simply. I told her about yesterday's birthday party in great detail, about Palomia's new car, about the expensive gifts, about the marijuana on the balcony, about how my daughter had treated me like a servant. Solange listened in silence, only occasionally shaking her head or pressing her lips together. When I got to the final argument and Palomia's accusations of stinginess, Solange couldn't take it anymore. Stingy? She exclaimed. Amalia, you've been spending the last of your money on those girls all your life. I remember how you gave up new dresses to buy them good shoes for school, how you saved on yourself so they could go to extra classes. But maybe Palomia's right. Maybe I really was too careful with money? Amalia, stop it! Solange stood up and started pacing the small room. You were a sensible mother. You taught the girls to value money, not to spend it on nonsense. And Palomia always wanted everything at once, and now that she has money, she's shown her true colors. What should I do, Solange? I gave her almost $500,000 and she turned into a monster. My friend stopped and looked at me seriously. Amalia, remember what I warned you about? I told you that that kind of money could ruin Palomia, and what happened? She quit her job, buys expensive things, smokes drugs, and abuses her own mother. But what can I do? The money's already been transferred. Who says you can't get it back? I looked at Solange with surprise. What do you mean? Amelia, think about it. You transferred the money through the bank, right? And the bank employs people who know you and respect you. Maybe there's a way to reverse the transfer. But there's no way. The money's already in her account. Whether it's possible or impossible, we'll find out, Solange said firmly. The main thing you must understand is that if you do nothing, Palomia will spend all the money in 6 months. And then he'll come to you for more. These words made me think. Solange was right. Palomia had already shown that money didn't make her happier or wiser. It only brought out the worst parts of her character. Do you know someone at the bank? A friend asked. I thought of Alberto Moreno. We had known each other for years. Ricardo had done business through his branch of the bank. Alberto had always had a special respect for our family, and I knew I could count on his understanding. Yes, I said slowly. There is one person, Alberto Moreno, the branch manager of the bank. He worked with my husband for a long time. That's great, Solange exclaimed. Go to him right now, explain the situation. Maybe he can do something. But it's Sunday. Does he have a home phone number? Call him. Tell him it's urgent. Solange was right. We had to act fast before Palomia spent more money. I called Alberto's house and explained that I needed an urgent appointment. Senora Ventera, of course, he answered without hesitation. Come to my house. We will definitely work something out. Alberto lived in a cozy house in the center of town. When I arrived, he met me in home clothes, but he looked as personable as he did at the bank. We went into his office, a small room filled with books and documents. Senora Ventera, what is it? He asked, sitting me down in a chair. You sounded very upset on the phone. I told him the whole story, from the decision to give my daughters the money to yesterday's scandal. Alberto listened attentively, occasionally asking clarifying questions. I understand your problem, he said when I was finished. And I must say that your concerns are well-founded. I've seen many cases where sudden wealth has ruined people. Alberto, tell me honestly, is there any way to get that money back? He hesitated, drumming his fingers on the table. Technically, no. The money was transferred legally, on your orders. But, he paused, there are certain nuances in banking law that can help us. What kind of nuances? You see, Senora Ventera, you are a major customer of our bank. You have multiple accounts, significant deposits, and if you were to request a special transaction, say, a consolidation of family assets, the bank might be able to accommodate you. I didn't quite understand what he was saying, but I sensed Alberto was offering some kind of solution. Explain it simply, please. We can make it look like a technical error, he said quietly. Let's say there was a system error in the transfer and the money needs to be returned to be reissued. In the meantime, your daughter's account will be blocked. And then you'll decide what to do with the money. Maybe put it in a restricted deposit, or maybe you keep it. Alberto's offer sounded tempting, but I knew it wasn't entirely fair. Wouldn't that be against the law? Senora Ventera, Alberto said seriously, you are a mother trying to protect her daughter from her own stupidity. The bank is interested in keeping its customers happy, and you are one of our most valuable customers. He stood up and walked over to the safe, pulling out some documents. Besides, he continued, there is one more thing. Your daughter didn't inform the bank about the change in her financial status. She received a large sum of money, but she continues to use a regular account. This could be seen as an attempt to hide income. Meaning? Meaning the bank has the right to demand that she explain the source of the funds, and if the explanation is unconvincing, well, the account can be blocked until the circumstances are clarified. I was beginning to see where he was going with this. How long will this operation take? If we start now, we'll be ready by tonight. Tomorrow morning, your daughter will find her account blocked and the money returned to your account. Can't she complain? Of course she can. But you'll still have the money while it's being processed, and it could take a long time, especially if you take your time to explain. I sat in the chair, thinking about Alberto's proposal. On the one hand, it wasn't exactly fair game. On the other hand, I was really trying to protect my daughter from her own stupidity. Alberto, what would happen to Catalina? Will her account be blocked too? No, he replied. The younger daughter shows no signs of suspicious activity. She doesn't spend money recklessly, doesn't change her lifestyle drastically. Her account will remain untouched. That settles it. Catalina deserved the gift. She behaved sensibly and didn't let money change her character. And Palomia showed she wasn't ready for that kind of responsibility. All right, I said firmly. Let's do it. Alberto smiled and opened the file folder. Great. I'll need your signature on a few papers, and a formal statement that you want to renegotiate the transfer. We spent the next hour completing the necessary paperwork. Alberto explained each piece of paper I signed. Most of them were standard bank forms, but some dealt with special procedures that the bank could apply to troubled accounts. That's it, Alberto said, putting the documents into a folder. Tomorrow, Monday morning, I will personally take over the case. By noon, the money will be returned to your account. And when will Palomia find out? As soon as she tries to make a withdrawal or card payment, the system will show the account is blocked. And what can she do? Go to the bank and ask for an explanation. We'll tell her there's been a technical error and we're checking. We'll ask for proof of source of funds. And then, it's up to you. I thanked Alberto and drove home. On the way, I wondered if I was doing the right thing, but every time I remembered yesterday's events, Palomia's insolent behavior, her accusations, her contemptuous tone, I was convinced that there was no other way. Rosario was waiting for me at home with dinner. She didn't ask too many questions, but I could see that she was worried about my condition. Rosario, tomorrow may be a difficult day, I told her after dinner. Perhaps Señorita Palomia will come and be very angry. I understand, Mrs. Amalia. Don't worry, I'll manage. I spent a restless night, waking at every rustle. I got up early in the morning and waited all day for a call from Alberto. He called at 2:30 in the afternoon. Señora Ventera, the operation has been completed successfully, he said in a businesslike tone. The account has been blocked and the funds have been transferred back to your deposit. Thank you, Alberto. I'm very grateful to you. Always at your service. And remember, if your daughter comes to you with any questions, direct her to the bank. We'll explain everything. I hung up the phone and felt both relieved and anxious. I had the money back, but now I had to face Palomia's wrath. And I knew that anger would be terrible. I knew Palomia would come. The only question was when exactly it would happen. I spent all Tuesday in tense anticipation, listening to every sound outside, every rustle in the garden. Rosario, too, sensed the storm was coming. She walked around the house more quietly than usual and tried not to make any noise with the dishes. The doorbell rang at 4:30 in the afternoon, while I was drinking tea in the living room, a sharp, insistent sound that didn't stop for a full minute. I knew it was Palomia. No one else could ring with such fury. Rosario peeked out of the kitchen with a questioning look. I nodded to her, letting her know I would open the door myself. I wanted to face the storm without hiding behind the housekeeper's back. When I opened the door, Palomia was literally flying in without waiting for an invitation. Edmundo followed her, looking confused and angry at the same time. Her eldest daughter's face was red with rage, her hair disheveled, and the fire of madness burning in her eyes. "Mom!" she shouted without even saying hello. "What have you done? Where's my money?" "Hello, Palomia," I said as calmly as I could. "Come into the living room and we'll talk. I'm not going anywhere." Palomia stood in the hall, clenching and unclenching her fists. "Answer me now. Where is my money?" "Your money?" I interjected, closing the front door. "What money? Don't pretend." My daughter's voice grew more and more shrill. $450,000, the ones you gave me. It's not in the account. Yes, I know. Those simple words had the effect of a bomb going off on Palomia. She opened her mouth, then closed it, then opened it again, but no sound came out. Edmundo put his hand on her shoulder, trying to calm her down. "Señora Amalia," he said, trying to keep his tone polite. "There must be some mistake. The bank said that the account was blocked for technical reasons." "There's no mistake," I interrupted him. "I've ordered the money to be returned. What? Palomia finally regained her speech. You what? How dare you? I dared because it's my money. I gave it to you, but now I'm taking it back. But you can't, screamed the daughter. You gave it to her. Gifts can't be returned. You can and you should if the recipient behaves ungratefully and irresponsibly. Palomia rushed toward me, and for a moment I thought she was going to hit me, but she stopped a few centimeters from my face, breathing heavily and frequently. Ungrateful? She hissed. I'm ungrateful? Are you? You're stealing from your own daughter? I'm not stealing. I'm taking back what I gave by mistake. By mistake? Palomia's voice broke into a shriek. Mom, you're crazy. What mistake? I walked into the living room, hoping the change of scenery would help calm things down a bit. Palomia and Edmundo followed me. The eldest daughter continued to scream, waving her arms and stomping her feet. Sit down, I suggested, pointing to the couch. I'm not sitting down, Palomia continued thrashing around the room. I want to know where my money is. I have the money. In my account, where it belongs. Edmundo! The daughter turned to her husband. Tell her something. She can't just take the money. Edmundo looked confused. He obviously did not know how to behave in such a situation. Señora Amalia, he began uncertainly. Perhaps we could discuss this calmly. Palomia is very upset. Upset? I laughed. Am I supposed to be happy about the way she acted at my birthday party? Your birthday party? Palomia stopped in the middle of the room. What did I do at your birthday party? You smoked drugs on my balcony. You were rude to me and Rosario. You treated me like a servant, and then you accused me of being stingy and slammed the door. And what? My daughter folded her arms across her chest. I told the truth. You really were stingy. Palomia, enough. I couldn't take it anymore. I've spent my whole life doing everything I could for you and my sister. I bought you nice clothes, paid for your education, medical treatment, entertainment. And you say I've been stingy? Good clothes? Snorted her daughter. Mom, you bought us clothes in cheap stores, and you wore thousands of dollars worth of jewelry. I inherited that jewelry from my grandmother, and the clothes were decent. Decent for beggars, Palomia shouted. Do you know how I felt when my classmates laughed at my shoes, or when the teacher said my backpack looked like a garbage bag? I don't remember that. Of course you don't. You never cared about our feelings. It was all about saving money. Edmundo tried to intervene. Girls, maybe we shouldn't rake up the past. Let's decide what to do with the money. Do what? Palomia turned to him. Mom must immediately return my money. Every penny of it. I won't, I said firmly. What do you mean you won't? The daughter's voice became shrill again. Very simple. You've shown you're not ready to handle that kind of money. In 3 days, you quit your job, bought an expensive car, spent a lot of money on stupid things. If I give you the money back, in 6 months, there'll be nothing left. It's my business what I spend it on, Palomia shouted. It's my money. It was yours. Now it's mine again. Her daughter started pacing the room even faster, waving her arms and muttering something under her breath. I could see she was on the verge of a nervous breakdown. Mom, you don't understand. She suddenly stopped. We've already spent some of the money. The car, the clothes, the jewelry, and I've booked a trip to Europe. I've already paid the deposit. That's your problem. My problem? Palomia stared at me in horror. Mom, I owe the dealership for the car $40,000 more, and at the travel agency, $20,000 for the trip. You should have thought of that before you spent money you hadn't earned yet. But I was counting on a gift. You said you were giving me that money. So I gave it to you. And then I took it back when I saw what you'd become. Edmundo tried to be the voice of reason. Señora Amalia, perhaps we could find a compromise? Well, not the whole amount, but at least some of it, so that Palomia could pay its debts? No compromise, I replied. Palomia is a grown woman. Let her solve her own problems. Solve her own problems? The daughter exploded again. How can I solve them without money? Mom, you realize I quit my job. I have no money to pay. Then go and get a new job. What job? Who's going to hire me after the scandal I caused my former boss? That's your problem too. Palomia stopped in the middle of the room and looked at me with an expression I had never seen before. There was such hatred in her eyes that it made me uncomfortable. Okay, she said quietly, but very clearly. You've decided to punish me. Not punish me, to teach me a lesson. Teach you a lesson? Her daughter's voice became dangerously low. Mom, are you trying to teach me a lesson? All right, then I'll tell you something. She stepped close to me, and I could feel the heat of her rage. You've always been a cold, selfish woman, Polomia began slowly. You never really loved us. We were a burden to you. You dreamed of living alone in your mansion like a queen. Polomia, stop. No, I won't, she screamed. Now it's my turn to talk. You know what I thought when you gave us the money? I thought you'd finally realized how badly you'd treated us, that you wanted to make amends. Turns out you were just playing with us. I wasn't playing. I wanted to give you a gift. A present? Polomia laughed hysterically. You wanted to see how we would react, to conduct an experiment on us. It's nonsense. Nonsense. Isn't taking the money back stupid? Mom, do you realize what you've done? I quit my job. I spent a lot of money. And now you're leaving me with nothing. You have a husband. Let him work. Edmundo blushed at these words. Senora Amalia, my salary won't cover the debts we've made. Then work, both of you, and live within your means. Polomia suddenly grabbed a crystal vase from the coffee table and threw it on the floor. The vase shattered with a loud clang. This is what you're doing to me, she shouted, shattering my life into pieces. Polomia, exclaimed Edmundo. Calm down! But his daughter didn't hear him. She flailed around the room, grabbing and throwing everything in sight. Sofa cushions flew, the floor lamp fell, framed photographs flew off the table. Polomia, stop that right now! I shouted. I won't, she replied, knocking over a chair. Do you want to see how I feel? This is how I feel. She grabbed a picture of our family, the one of us together at a picnic years ago, and threw it on the floor. The glass cracked, splitting the image in half. Polomia, stop! Edmundo tried to grab his wife's hands, but she pulled away. Don't touch me! She shrieked. She has ruined my life! Do you understand? She ruined it! I stood in the middle of the chaos and watched my eldest daughter destroy everything around her. For a moment, I was scared. There was madness in her eyes. Rosario! I called out to the housekeeper. Don't call anyone! Polomia shouted. This is between us. She grabbed another vase and raised her hand to throw it in my direction. But Edmundo intercepted her arm. Enough, Polomia, enough! He held her tightly, not letting her move. Calm down, you can't do that. His daughter hung in his arms, sobbing and shouting curses at me. Gradually, her strength waned, and she just stood there, breathing heavily and sobbing. I hate you, she said quietly, looking into my eyes. Do you hear me? I hate you. You're not my mother anymore. Polomia, shut up. She broke free from her husband's embrace. I don't want to see you again. Never, do you understand? Never. She turned to Edmundo. Let's get out of here. Now. But Polomia. Come, I said. I'm sick of being in this house. Edmundo looked at me helplessly. Senora Amalia, can't we talk some more, when everyone has calmed down? We are not going to talk about anything, Polomia shouted. Edmundo, if you don't come with me now, I'll go alone. The son-in-law spread his hands in confusion and followed his wife to the exit. At the door, Polomia turned around. You know what, Mom? She said with a venomous grin. We're going to sue you. For theft. For fraud. We'll see who's right. Go ahead, I said calmly. Just prove that the money was yours first. Polomia's face contorted with anger, but she said nothing. She slammed the door so hard that the walls shook, and a minute later I heard the car start. I was alone in the trashed living room. There was debris everywhere, overturned furniture, broken pictures. Rosario appeared with a bucket and a mop. Senora Amalia, don't worry. I'll clean it up, she said quietly. Thank you, dear. Do you need a hand? No need. Rest. I sat down in the only surviving chair and looked at the destruction. The most painful thing was seeing the shattered family photos, scraps of happy memories trampled by a daughter's rage. But the strange thing was, I didn't feel regret for my decision. On the contrary, there was peace in my soul. I had done the right thing. Polomia had shown her true colors, and now I knew who she really was. The money hadn't made her worse. It just brought out what had always been in her: greed, selfishness, ingratitude. And I turned a blind eye for years because she was my daughter. Now it's over. I no longer have an older daughter. But I have a younger one, Catalina, who has remained as kind and modest despite her sudden wealth. And there is Rosario, who knows my family better than I know myself. I sat in the study for a long time, looking at Ricardo's portrait. I wonder what he would say about today's events. Would he approve of my decision, or would he consider it too harsh? My husband was always gentler than me, especially when it came to children, but he also valued honesty and integrity above all else. The phone rang around 9 p.m. It was Catalina. "Mom, what's wrong?" she asked excitedly. "Palomia just called me, yelling something about stolen money." "Darling, I wanted to tell you myself," I said, sinking tiredly into the chair. "Yes, I took the money from my sister. But why?" I told Catalina about Sunday's birthday party, about Palomia's behavior, about my decision to return the money. My youngest daughter listened in silence, only occasionally sighing. "Mom, I'm so sorry," she said finally. I knew Palomia had changed, but I didn't think it would be this different. "Catalina, I want you to understand that my decision concerns only your sister. Your money stays with you. You deserve this gift." "Thank you, Mom, but I'm still sad. We're a family." "We were a family," I corrected. "Palomia made her own choices." After talking to Catalina, I went for a walk in the garden. The night air was cool and crisp, and the stars in the sky seemed especially bright. I stopped by the rose bushes I had planted with Ricardo and remembered our youth, when we had dreamed of a happy family. Back then, I thought that love and care would automatically make children good people, but life turned out to be more complicated. One daughter grew up kind and grateful, and the other daughter grew up selfish and greedy, and no one could explain why that was the case. When I returned to the house, I found Rosario in the kitchen. She was washing dishes and humming an old song softly. "Rosario," I said, "thank you for today. I know it hasn't been easy." "Señora Amalia, I have worked in this house for 20 years. I've seen your girls grow up. Señorita Palomia has always been complicated." "Difficult? Do you remember when she was a child, breaking toys when things didn't go her way, or how she'd yell at me if I didn't cook what she wanted?" And Señorita Catalina had always been quiet and polite. I nodded. Rosario was right. The signs of what Palomia would become had been visible since I was a child, but I preferred to ignore them. "You did the right thing," the housekeeper added. "Money would have made things worse." I went to bed late, but I slept soundly for the first time in days. In the morning, I woke up rested and calm. At breakfast, I read the newspaper and planned the day. Life went on. In the middle of the day, Alberto called from the bank. "Señora Ventera, your daughter was here this morning," he said. She demanded an explanation, threatened to sue. "And what did you tell her?" "What we agreed. A technical error, a check of documents, possible irregularities in the declaration of income." She left very angry. "Thank you, Alberto. I don't think she'll be coming to see you again." "I hope not. By the way, if you need legal help, the bank has good lawyers." That evening I called Solange and told her what had happened. "Amalia, I'm sorry about what happened," she said. "But you did the right thing." "Yes," I replied. "I don't doubt it anymore." "What will you do with the money now?" "I don't know. Maybe I'll give it to charity. Or maybe I'll leave Catalina some extra. I'll see." "What if Palomia does sue?" "Let her sue. I have proof that the money was transferred legally, and the bank will back me up." And it was true. I had no more doubts. I'd lost my daughter, but I'd kept my self-respect. Or maybe I hadn't lost her. I just stopped deceiving myself about who she really was.